This is the video tutorial for the Happy Days ZARA tote bag. You will need fabric for the lining, fabric for the outer, 2 zips, a magnetic clasp. I use the 15mm size, but you can use the smaller ones, but I find those a bit fiddly. Some zipper tape, which is really useful, optional, and some interfacing. And this is how we make it. I've put interfacing on the reverse of my main outer fabrics. Before we do the next stage, make sure that this is the top of your fabric, especially if you're using directional fabric like me. Take your ruler and measure 8 centimetres from this top edge, make a mark. 8 centimetres and make a mark. And then do one in the middle as well, especially if you've got a short ruler like me. Make a mark. And then join your lines up. I've drawn my line. And next I'm going to cut along this line. Once again, double check that this is the top of your bag. I've cut my fabric. Place one of your lining fabrics right sides up. Make sure that this is the top, especially if you're using directional fabric as I am. And as we did before for the outer, measure 8 centimetres and make a mark. 8 centimetres, make a mark. And I've also done one in the centre as well. And then get your ruler and draw a line. Once you've drawn your line, as I've done, carefully cut all along. That's my fabric cut, and now I'm going to put that to one side. Take one of your zips and place it face down so the zipper pull is touching the table, and line up this edge of the zip and this edge of your bag that you've cut and line it up, and then add some clips. Don't worry that your zip's a bit long, we're going to trim it at the end. I've added my clips. And now I'm going to put my zipper foot on my sew machine and sew carefully all the way along. I've sewn all the way along. I've used white cotton so you can see clearer all the way along there. Take the larger piece of your lining fabric that you've just cut and place it pretty side to pretty side, right sides together, on top. Make sure that this edge touches the top of your zipper and add some clips. I've added my clips and once again, using my zipper foot, carefully sew all the way along. I've sewn all the way along. Now I'm going to flip it over. Line everything up. Best to do this on your ironing board really, and then carefully give it a nice press all the way along. I've pressed all along. Don't worry if your lining is showing a bit here as mine is, just trim it off. I've pressed it. And now I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and carefully top stitch all the way along. I always increase my stitch length to about a 4 at this stage. Turn over, line up your edge of this fabric on the top of this zip and make sure that the sides all match up. And then add some clips. I've added my clips and now I'm going to take it over the sewing machine and carefully sew all the way along. I've sewn all the way along. Now flip over and take your remaining piece of your lining that you cut earlier and place it on top. So place it right sides together, so pretty side to pretty side, and ensure that this edge and the edge of your zip line up. Make sure everything's square, and then add some clips. Once you've added your clips, take it over to the sewing machine with your zipper foot still on and carefully sew all the way across. I've got to open everything up, flip it over, take it over to your iron, and once again a nice press. I've pressed it, and once again I'm going to top stitch all the way along, and once again I'm going to increase my stitch length to a 4. I've top stitched and I've opened my zip about 5 centimetres, and now I'm going to turn it over, ready for the next stage. I've placed my internal pocket lining pretty side to pretty side, so right sides together. Line everything up the side and across the top, and then add some clips. I've added my clips, and I've also added a couple of pins just there so it keeps the zipper close together better, and I've added a couple of pins at the bottom as well. I'm now going to use a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance, so fairly close to the edge, and sew all the way along one side, along the top, the side, and along the bottom. I'm now going to add my back piece. Make sure that it's the right way up, so this is the top, especially if you're using directional fabric like I am. Turn over, line up all your sides and edges, and then add some clips. Next, make sure that your zipper is still pulled open a bit. I can actually feel my zipper there. Then add some clips as I've done, and use a 1/2 inch seam allowance, sew all the way down this side, stop, along the bottom, stop, and then back up the side and stop. I've sewn all the way around using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and I've cut off my excess zip. Next, place your template for your box corner as I've done. Line it up on the row stitches down here and the row stitches along the bottom, and then draw around it. I've drawn round, and now I'm going to do exactly the same for this side. The next step is to cut them out. I've cut them out, and now we're going to box the corners. Before I box the corners, I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and just sew a few stitches just on the edge where we've cut the stitches. This is to stop the stitches coming apart, and do it on this side as well. To box the corners, place your hand inside and then pinch everything together. Open up your seam, this side and this side. interfacing is getting in the way. There we go. So ensure that this seam and this seam line up, and I always add a clip to my middle one first, so I've got them all together first, like that. Then match up this seam, this edge, sorry, and add a clip, and line up this edge and add a clip. Then we're going to take it over the sewing machine and use 1/2 inch seam allowance, sew all the way across. I've sewn all the way down, that's the one side done, and I'm going to repeat exactly the same for this side. That's both my box corners done, and now I'm going to turn the bag the right way out. I've turned my bag the right way out, and now I'm going to put it to one side while we work on the handles. We're now working on the handles. I'm demonstrating on a small piece of fabric. Obviously your handles will be much longer than this. Place your handle fabric right sides down, so pretty side down. I've added some interfacing to my handles as well. Fold your fabric of your handles in half and crease. This is much easier done on the ironing board. And using that crease line, place this edge on that line. And do exactly the same, this edge on the centre crease. Then carefully fold them all over and add some clips. I've added clips, and now I'm going to take it over the sewing machine and increase my stitch length to a 4, and using a scant 1/4 inch, so fairly close to the edge, I'm going to sew along the open edge first and then along the folded edge next. Once you've done that for your 2 handles, we're ready for the next stage. I'm now going to mark the position of the handles. Mark 10 centimetres from this side seam. I flattened my bag a little bit to make it easier. And on the 10 centimetre mark, use your pen and make a little mark. And do exactly the same from this seam, 10 centimetres, and make a mark. Using the mark we made, take your handle and place it with the open side there on that mark. And make sure that it's straight, nice and straight as well at the top of your bag. Then add a clip. Only adding a clip to the one side, and then bring your handle round, make sure it's not twisted, and once again add this open side to this line. And just on the one side, make sure it's nice and lined up. Add a clip. So your handle is facing down. When you're happy with the position that you've clipped your handles in, so that they're nice and square, take it over the sewing machine and just tack into place. You won't see these stitches in your final make, they're just holding stitches. And remember, make sure we're only sewing to this one side of the bag. I've sewn my handles across at the top just to hold them into place, And now I'm going to repeat the whole process to attach the handles to the other side. That's my handles attached, and now we're going to put it to one side while we work on the internal pocket. We're now working on our internal pocket. Place the fabric right sides up, take your zip and place it with the zipper pull touching the table. So there's the pull and it's touching the table. Line up the edge of your zip and the edge of your fabric and add a few clips. Add your zipper foot to your sewing machine and then carefully sew all the way across. I've sewn all the way across. Now I'm going to flip it over. Take it over to my iron and press it, and then top stitch carefully all the way across. I'll be increasing my stitch length to a 4. I've top stitched all along, and now we've got to attach the other side. So bring your zipper over, ensure that your fabrics all line up, and then with this edge of your zip and this edge of your fabric, line it all up and then add some clips. I've added my clips and now I'm going to take it over the sewing machine with my zipper foot on, carefully sew all the way across. I've sewn all the way across and now we've got to open the zip. So go inside, pull open your zip, fold over and press. I've pressed it and now I'm going to top stitch carefully all the way along. I've top stitched all the way along. Now I'm going to close my zipper back up and then pull down, and what you're looking for is 5 centimetres there and 5 centimetres there. Now I'm going to take it over to the ironing board and press. Next, pop your hand inside and carefully open your zipper a little bit, and then add some clips along this side and along this side. I've added my clips and now I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, sew all the way down this side. Be careful with your zipper teeth, make sure they're nice and close together. Sew all the way down here, and exactly the same for this side. Double check that you have opened your zipper before you start sewing. I've sewn all the way down this side and all the way down this side. You could, if you wish, zigzag along here or use pinking shears. And now I'm going to turn it the right way out through the zip. I've turned it the right way out and I've pushed out the 4 corners and pressed it. We're now working on the lining. Place one of your lining fabrics right sides up. Ensure that this is the top of your bag. Then fold in half and press. Now open out, and we've made a nice centre crease down the middle. Now we've got to find the centre of our pocket. Take your pocket, fold in half and press. Using your centre crease, take your ruler and measure 8 centimetres from this top edge and make a mark. Place your pocket on the 8 centimetre mark we've just made and make sure that the creases all line up. Carefully pin into place. I've added my pins. I've also added an extra one there just to keep everything in place. And now I'm going to take it over the sewing machine and sew 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way across, just the top of the pocket. I've sewn all the way across, and that's our internal pocket all secure. We're now going to take the other piece of lining fabric and place it right sides together on top, so pretty side to pretty side. Line up all the sides and edges and then add clips. I've sewn around the 3 sides and now I'm going to box my corners, and as before, place your template for your box corner so the edge of your template touches the line of stitches on this side and the line of stitches on the bottom, and then draw around the template. That's one corner marked, and now I'm going to do exactly the same for this corner. That's both my corners drawn, and now I'm going to cut them out as I did before. That's both of my corners cut out, and as I did before, I'm going to go over these stitches just to reinforce them. Now we're going to box the corners, and as we did before, place your hand inside and ensure that this bottom seam and this side seam meet up. And add a clip. Double check. That's one in, and then ensure that the top seams all match up. Add a clip. And the other side. There. Then take it over your sewing machine and 1/2 inch seam allowance, sew all the way across. I've sewn all the way across, and that's one side done, and I'm going to repeat for the other side. Now working on the closure tab. Take one of your closure tab fabrics and fold in half. This is just to determine the centre. Open out. Using that crease line, measure 3 centimetres from this bottom edge and make a mark. Take the backing plate of your magnetic clasp and place the circle on that mark you've made. Bit fiddly. Then draw through the other 2 slots as I've done. We've now got to cut the holes for the clasp, so carefully pinch your 2 fabrics together, and where those marks are that you've just drawn, carefully snip through each mark. Using those 2 holes that you've just made, put your magnetic clasp through, and then take your backing plate that you drew round and pop it over there, and then spread. And that's one part of our magnetic clasp in. Now take the remaining fabric, place it right sides together and add some clips all the way around the curved part. I've added my clips and now I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and sew around the clipped area. We're not sewing across this top. I've sewn all the way around, and as you can see I've also snipped carefully around the curved area for a much nicer finish when we turn it. And that's our next job, to turn it the right way out through the gap at the top. And that's our close your tab finish for the moment. Find the centre point between the handles as I've done and make a mark. And do the same on the tab. Find the centre point and make a mark. Using the two marks, line them up as I am so the raw edges are all level. When you're looking at the back of the closure tab, you will be looking at the magnetic clasp like this size. Then when you're happy they're in the right position, add a few clips. I've added my clips and now I'm going to sew fairly close to the edge, tack my closure tab into place. Make sure when you're sewing that you're only sewing through this side. I've tacked the closure tab on that side. Now we're working on the front of the bag. And as we did before, measure and find the centre as I've already done and make a mark. From this centre line, measure 3 centimetres down and put another mark. As I did before, place the backing plate with the centre circle on the mark you've just drawn and then draw either side. Now we've got to cut these little marks that we made, but we've got to make sure that we're only cutting through the one side, we're not cutting through the pocket. As before, pinch your fabric together. If you've not done this before, I'd have a little practice first, and then get your scissors and snip along the lines you drew. I'll push the legs of the magnetic clasp through, and I've added the base plate and folded the legs back, and that's your magnetic clasp in position. Before we put the lining in, we've got to make sure that the handles are facing down, the closure tab is facing down, and the handle on this side is facing down. Place your lining with your pocket that you made and sewn in position on the table side. With the bag with the zipper facing upwards, we're going to put this inside the lining. The bag is the right way out and the lining is the wrong way out. I'll put my main bag inside my lining, and I've lined up my side seams and my top edges, and I've added clips. I'm now going to take it over the sewing machine and use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, sew all the way around, joining the lining to the main bag. I've sewn all the way around, and now I'm going to turn it the right way out through the gap I left at the side. I've turned my bag the right way out, and I've tucked in my lining, and I'm going to top stitch now carefully all the way around. Make sure that your handles and your closure tab are out of the way when you do that. I've top stitched all the way around the top, and that's your ZARA tote bag all finished.